Anything else from cases or consultations?
Yeah, so I mentioned I got a case approved in 5 days and then also a case RFE'd after filing and regular processing. The RFE'd case is interesting because he actually has a US STEM PhD. And I'm a little bit shocked that this case was RFE'd because USCIS says in its own policy manual that this is a priority. And we had documented in the petition why his work was so important for the United States. So we're going to be taking a look at the RFE and responding. They question the same kinds of things that are on trend right now, where most of the questioning seems to involve this national importance requirement. And USCIS is essentially asking, well, how important is it? They're not asking, is it important or not? They're asking, how important is it? And then more importantly, they're asking, how much impact does that individual person have towards this area of national importance? I was just talking to my associates the other day, and I think it's a bit disingenuous that they're putting all of these questions under that first prong of DANASAR, because when asking if something is of national importance or not, that really should be a yes or a no question. When you're asking how important, that should all be pushed off to the third prong, where they're actually doing a balancing test and they're saying, okay, how much benefit does this person bring to the US versus how much do we need to protect US workers in this area? So we're going to try and respond by showing them that the analysis is properly deferred to that third prong. And the question for the first prong really is this of national importance or is it not? And then when they ask, how important can this individual really be in this area? That should really be questioned under the second prong, not under the first prong. So I think USCIS is just mixing themselves up. They're tying themselves in knots, trying to figure out what the standard should be for these cases, instead of taking a broader view and actually using the balancing test as it was intended to be used. A national interest waiver is a waiver of the labor certification process. So the bottom line in all NIW cases is if you can show that the US has an interest in keeping you in the United States, as opposed to providing job protection for a minimally qualified US worker, which is what the labor certification process tests for, and they decide that it should weigh in your favor, then your case should be approved. That's really what it comes down to. And so if you don't have special skills, if you are just a software engineer for a big company and you don't really do anything else and you haven't worked on super important projects and you haven't individually contributed in a really important way, then sure, maybe the US government has an interest in protecting a US worker and giving a US worker a chance at your job. But if you bring really unique qualifications and are contributing in unique ways and kind of raising the standards within the rest of the industry, raising the bar, mentoring others, doing all of these things to contribute, then I think the US does have a very strong interest in keeping you in the US because ultimately your activities benefit US workers. And so the balancing test should weigh in your favor. This is how I think USCIS should look at all NIW cases. They're not really doing that right now. They're trying to figure out how to implement some standards within this framework. I think they're kind of tying themselves in knots trying to do that. But yeah, that's the focus. That's what we're going to try and get them to focus on when we submit our RFE responses. And we'll see how that strategy works in the next few months.